Welcome, everyone, to the final February edition of That's Football of 2023. Last day of February. Not leap year this year, unlike in 2020.
No leap year, unfortunately. But, we'll have one to look forward to in 2024, I guess. So.
Yeah, we do. Well, week 2 of XFL has been concluded. Some good, some bad. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. And getting interesting with the first full year of football as well. We got, as we said, XFL Week 2. Yep. NFL rumors both on the field and off the field, Josh.
It's a lot going on, man. But we're gonna make sure we hit on it all, man. So, of course, as we do, always have to start with our home team, the undefeated St. Louis BattleHawks. Now 2-0. AJ McCarron leading the comeback again, man. What can we say?
Yeah, though the play was a little bit better. The offensive line did get better. But here's the thing, too. I'll mention this, too. This was about 2 players. Our starting local player, running back Brian Hill.
Yep.
And then also, let's not forget, one of our big defensive starters, Travis Freeney, wasn't there, the one who did the scoop and sack on week 1. So those 2 will be back. So not bad for a short week, I will say.
Yeah, not bad for a short weekend and missing 2 key contributors, as you mentioned. Also, I gotta give a shout out to the resilience from the kicker, Hagman. Two pretty bad misses, in the course of that game to then rebound and get the game winner late there in the fourth quarter, right as time is expiring. It's a hell of a way to come back after. The failures on the missed field goals before. And then, again, just the resilience overall of the offense, man. I'm starting to really become a fan of Hakeem Butler. 61 yards, another touchdown this week after having a touchdown in San Antonio for week 1 as well. So, wide receivers, man, we wanted those big, 6'4", wide receivers that big targets to throw to.
Well, and Hakeem Butler, I'll stop you. He's 6'6".
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So, Aitman, you got at 6'4", Butler is 6'6". Just throwing the ball up there. Those big power forwards is, some football analysts have referred to those big wide receivers as. So, really good showing yet again. Sea Dragons, they kind of had our number a little bit early in the game, and then as we saw from them in week 1, turnovers are kind of their Achilles heel. 3 fumbles over the course of that game. Another one from Ben DiNucci, who, again, looked great early on. I also really like Pearson, the receiver from the Sea Dragons. Fast dude, man, making plays all over the field. Of course, we struggled a little bit to keep him in front of us. But overall, man, it's a real good win. Again, I love the fight and the ability to come back from the BattleHawks.
And let me also say, for being the first Thursday night game, this was a heck of a lot better than most of those Amazon Thursday night games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is kind of a slam towards the NFL, but dear God, it was just like, for some reason, destiny aligned for about every Thursday night game. Most of these games will be played like crap.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
whether the teams are both good, bad, or just stupid coaching.
Well, I mean, you had that one, like, really bad one. Was it Colts and Broncos? Where neither team scored a touchdown? You had some bad Thursday night performances in the NFL.
It's still surprising Nathaniel Hackett is even an offensive coordinator right now.
Well, I hate defending Nathaniel Hackett right now because I definitely don't want to defend his performance as a head coach. But as an offensive coordinator, the man did get to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles as his quarterback. So I'll let him have the offensive coordinator job. Head coach, he probably doesn't need to be anywhere near again. But OC, we can give him another chance, especially I guess with the Jets, where he may end up with Rodgers again. But we'll say that for a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, we'll see on that. So another thing too about that game, like, they're still like trying to figure out both sides. Because remember, they do not have preseason. They were supposed to have, ladies and gentlemen, kind of like a practice type game scenario, but that was befuddled due to the weird Texas weather that has been having the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them getting like ice and sleet and stuff in Texas, which typically would never happen before. So, hate it for them that they didn't get, a few more reps against live competition. But again, our BattleHawks are undefeated, so we won't speak too ill on what could have been or what should have happened.
And I want to give a big shout out to probably, and I'm glad for this, for probably my favorite defensive player who plays my position that I did in a 3-4 is the nose guard, Kevin Atkins.
Hey.
Big guy. He caused fumbles, went down low, caused everything, have it down by the middle. And him and I think it was LaCale London, they tore it up in the front, and I can't wait for. Because when they face the DC defenders, it's a tough test, let me be clear, because of a certain type of formation that they do, but we'll explain that here in a little bit, and also talk with Mike Mitchell here in the second hour, who covers the DC defenders for XFL News Hub, and that's going to be a rowdy crowd too.
Oh yeah, of course. Hopefully they don't throw lemons at us.
Oh, there's a reason that's not going to happen this time. No, maybe one of two reasons, but I doubt they're not going to sell lemonade that's one of their probably big priorities of revenue at that MLS stadium. Audi Field, that's right, Audi Field. So, okay, anything else that caught your eye during the BattleHawks and the Seattle Sea Dragons?
Well, I know a lot of people I've seen comments both ways about AJ McCarron's interview after the game, which, he mentioned that he could have had, backup jobs in the NFL on a number of different teams, but chose to play in the XFL just to create those memories for his kids as a starting quarterback. It's something about that. It wasn't like overly emotional for me. Obviously, I have a son, but we're not at that age yet where I'm playing. Obviously, I'm not a professional athlete, but not at the age yet where he's understanding those types of situations. But I do think you see so many of these guys that, whether it's AJ McCarron, who's a little bit older, or some of these guys who have been on NFL practice squads or coming up in the draft and not really getting a chance. You really can feel the hunger in the football that's being played right now. And I love to see it, man. I love the energy. And I really think, again, based on what we've seen so far, I know it's just a couple games, but XFL, they got to be happy with the product, that's been on the field so far. Not even just in Seattle on Thursday, which we already mentioned has been better than a lot of the NFL games on the Thursday nights. But one of the best finishes we will see in any football setting throughout the course of this year. Game-winning field goal, a bunch of back and forth between two really sound teams. I think the XFL just got to be happy with the product that they put out so far, and I think you're going to continue to see stories like AJ McCarron, Jakar Pearson, I think is his first name, for Seattle. They even got Josh Gordon in a little bit of a comeback story there in Seattle as well, not to mention the countless other stories on other teams. So I think that's just something to keep an eye out for, but also I think something that's going to continue to show itself on the field, even outside of the interviews.
Yes, and also let's not forget the connection of McCarron to Prohl.
Yes.
Which is very important too, because one thing that infuriated everyone on the BattleHawks side was the drop balls.
Yeah, the drops were killing us.
And it was like we should have, that score should have been at least about maybe 2 to 3 more touchdowns on the BattleHawks side.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make the case that they easily should have been over 30 points. But again, also our defense, man, like Seattle, they kind of got going. They had found a little bit of a rhythm early, but for the majority of that second half, man, we had them pretty quiet. And so I think, hats off to that defense. We mentioned LaCale London, my man Atkins, the defensive line especially, and of course Ben DeLuca's all over the field.
Oh, yeah.
He's a menace at this point. But
yes, one of the few white safeties playing.
I mean, look, he hold it down for his people, man. He got to hold it down for his people, right?
Like I know when we had Pat Ruffino on, like the only other tandem of white safeties in football right now, of course, besides some college football teams, of course, is the Minnesota Vikings, as he mentioned. Of course, it's different from, what was the safety that we got from the Giants in the early 2000s?
Oh, you talking about Jason Sehorn. He was a cornerback, though.
Oh, no, for the St. Louis Rams.
Oh, damn, from the Giants. Archuleta?
No.
We drafted him.
That Spagnola brought from the Giants.
God. I'm blanking on the name.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name. I know
my brother made fun of him because he was okay, but not that great.
I mean, that's usually the life of a white safety. I'm not even not gonna lie to you. You know, he's all right, but he's not real. That's usually the life of a white safety.
I'll just say we got some pretty good. If we're gonna go, we got some pretty good white linebackers.
Oh, look. So here's the thing, linebackers. y'all look. Y'all got that one locked down.
Yeah, we got Silas Kelly and Mike Rose is fine. And
look, and even you can go.
I'm just sad to say for season 2, I'm afraid we're gonna lose Silas Kelly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be on somebody's NFL squad. Honestly, I'm a little nervous that Ben DeLuca's putting too much good tape out there because I would love to keep him around, but the way he's flying around out there, man, making plays, I don't know what they have as far as awards planned for the final, like the end of the season here in the XFL. But any awards for defensive players, I'm assuming he's going to be on the short list of whatever those awards are.
Yes, and then, of course, this was an experiment, too, with Disney because it's assumed that FX is an experiment for sports stuff because FX generally for the Disney crowd is drama stuff, though They do have a good show that I finally watched called The Bear, which is actually pretty good. Now
is The Bear more? I've heard a good thing.
It's more of a dark comedy.
Okay. Now,
but it's good though.
I don't know if Snowfall is your cup of tea, but Snowfall is in the front.
I heard of it. I know it's ending. I haven't seen an episode.
Snowfall is definitely a good watch, man.
Yeah.
It's,
there's a lot of famous shows I haven't really seen. I've never seen an episode of Schitt's Creek, actually.
I've watched Schitt's Creek. Very funny. I've not seen like every episode, but the episodes I've seen, I definitely laughed. So
yeah. So now, of course, I'm still waiting for. They need to start having another football drama again. Not All American. All that CW crap.
Look, don't get me started on All American because at this point I'm hate watching All American. Like. I'm still holding on because I started from the first season, and I don't want to put no spoilers out there for anybody who has like followed the show but maybe not watched every episode of this current season. Just know that in the last 2 episodes they've done something that they did not need to do, something that made me very upset as a fan of the show. And we'll just leave it at that. We're gonna leave it at that. But yeah, All American has been a steady decline in my I guess. Not interest level because, again, I still watch the show, but I'm hate watching it.
Now, within the age of reboots, rebrands, and all that stuff, and that's everything nowadays.
Yeah.
ESPN, please bring back Playmakers. We know why it was canceled. Not because of ratings. It was because...
It just... there were some things in Playmakers that weren't quite family-friendly for it to be a Disney affiliate, if you understand what I'm saying.
And Cuba Gooding Jr.'s brother is actually pretty good as one running back for that show.
I mean, I'm saying, like, Playmakers was a good show, man.
Yep.
I think ESPN can do something along that line. They tried their hand in the drama, but maybe they just want to stick to sports. Who knows?
Yeah, so now let's go to the second game, and this is mostly the bad part for week 2.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Now, remember, Vegas came late to the party, if you say. And here's the thing, as we have with former reports and also what Mike Mitchell has told us that will join us here in the second hour, Vegas was Jerry Cardinal's idea of Redbird Capital. Yeah. And also they were very late getting the venue that they were using called Cashman Field. Though, according to the record, it actually did hold some NFL games, actually, with the Houston Oilers, and I think it was versus the Eagles that I saw back in the 60s.
Really?
That's what it said. So, yeah, because here's the thing. Now, people wonder, why did they choose that one? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there was Reliant Stadium, but apparently Mark Davis wanted very high rent. Supposedly, now let me be clear, this is a rumor. Apparently he wanted $300 a head. Even the Dome, even though the Dome is a little bit more higher than most of the XFL ticket price, it's not that damn high.
I was gonna say $300. I mean, $100 is still for the XFL. I understand he's probably charging that for NFL games.
And then, of course, people said, "Oh, why don't they use Sam Boyd?" Well, because of that agreement with the city, they cannot use Sam Boyd Stadium. UNLV plays in Reliant Stadium, and UNLV should actually be torn down. I don't know if some people said, oh, they condemned it because of that agreement. I'm like, because I believe if the agreement goes, they pay UNLV like $3.5 million. But though there's rumors, I would not be shocked that Raiders have not been keeping up on those payments.
I mean, they paying coaches not to coach. They paying John Gruden to sit at home right now. So maybe they don't have the money. The Davis family, again, it's not like the family business is something else.
Give Josh McDaniel a third, fourth chance.
I mean, yeah, that's another story.
And also sending Derek Carr away, and we'll see how that goes here with the NFL resort about Derek Carr here. Now, the thing that made it worse about the whole thing was, of course, the rain. And remember, Las Vegas is in the desert. And you're thinking, oh, it's just regular rain because of all the dry stuff. No, that's not how it is at all on the West Coast.
They're not used to that. They're not used to that at all.
And the first thing that happened, if you saw the game, the wind came in. Which, by the way, we had terrible wind here yesterday in St. Louis, too.
Oh, yeah. The wind was all bad, man. It was, gusts and gusts and gusts. And I can only imagine playing football or something like that.
And then, of course, on the Viper side, Luis Perez started, but then Brett Hundley finally got in there. And honestly, Brett Hundley looked like a better quarterback than Luis Perez.
I mean, we'll get to this on the Guardians as well, but Brett Hundley was better. I don't think either quarterback played good. Like, they didn't play well. The Vipers, they scored. They had a 3-and-out, which Luis Perez was 0 for 3 on his first 3 pass attempts. They get the fumble in DC territory, which I believe was on the 2-yard line. Mm-hmm. They score on that. Literally one play, touchdown. The rest of their drives, not just for like the first half, not just for the quarter, for the entire game, the rest of their drives, punt, miss field goal, fumble, punt.
And
I mean, that's pretty. Again, the defender's defense has been lights out. I'll give them that. But to score on your second drive of the game and basically not get close again until the second half is pretty bad.
And then also on the DC side, the running game was good at first, but it went down. And then Jordan Tiamu, like, the question is, are they going to start starting? Because here's the thing. They got Derek King in that kind of like not really triple option, but more of a veer package, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, and I think one thing that I'm hoping, at least for the BattleHawks' sake, I'm actually not hoping that DC changes. But it seems like every time Derek King's on the field, he's getting the ball. And he's going to run. Like, there's no threat of him passing whatsoever.
Though he does have a quick release, though.
Quick release, and he can make some throws. Now, granted, he's a lot smaller in the pocket than what Jordan Tiamu is. But it just does not seem like they have any interest in letting him actually throw the ball. Every time they get him on the field, they want to put the ball in his hands to be able to run or try to make a play. And I think that predictability is going to get to be a little bit tough to overcome that predictability as we get more of these games going.
Yeah, so another thing, too, because that package that Derek King is, like, I'm going to get care of we're going to go back to my high school days here because, like, once again, 3-4 nose guard type thing. There's something similar because my senior year, and I hate to remind, this is the game I got injured. MICDS ran kind of something similar, but their veer running was more on the inside. They had the first guy running, then they had a guy come in and run in, like, blocker and this type of veer situation. Theirs is a little bit more outside. Now, if it was inside, I remember, because a good way to stop it, like, just hold the lineman there a little bit. If you're able to knock him back, just wait to see, okay, that guy doesn't let him pass. Yeah. Then there's a guy with the ball. Go get him.
Right.
But on the outside part, this is where the linebackers have more of a and also, they're probably going to put one of those in a contained setting when Derek King's on the field. And also Jordan, too, let's be clear.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan did a lot of running as well, which, I mean, as a whole, I didn't get the number of attempts. I want to say it was 30-plus runs compared to like 22 or 23 pass attempts. They ran for 229 yards. Now, like you said, most of that being, second half when they were putting the game away. But I think they are going to start being way too predictable on offense, especially if I think, Tiamu threw the ball 20-plus times and didn't have 100 yards passing.
Yeah, and it wasn't accurate either.
Yeah.
Though, be clear, rain, weather, and the wind have something to that effect. Now, of course, then again, Tomo didn't really have the greatest accuracy either here or with the Tampa Bay Bandits last year.
Right. So, But
we're hoping good here, but I think they're there might be just one more team that they might go with a 2-quarterback system. So,
yeah.
And now, to get back to the situation with the field with Cashman Field, because it was not a very good night for certain positions on either squad. Can you guess which one that is?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that needed to keep their footing, really, right? But
so, if you haven't guessed, folks, kickers.
Yeah. The kickers had a rough night.
Yeah, fell on the kickoff and also on field goal tries. So, one thing, too, is that, because I think it was also very weird weather for Vegas last week, too. This ain't an excuse. This is just I don't know, it's weird weather here. Heck, it's going to be 70 degrees here tomorrow. Then it's going to get cold here again. And it's just going to be interesting. Plus, they got I don't know if it was tires or some type of weird marks on the midfield on Cashman. I don't know what that
Yeah, I don't know what was up with the marks on the field. I mentioned this to you before we started actually recording, but just from an overall presentation standpoint, it was the one game out of, the 8 we've seen total between week 1 and week 2 where the look of the field on TV, and the weather probably had something to do with this too, but just the look of where they were playing on TV just did not look like a professional field, if that makes sense. And not saying that is the XFL's fault. Again, they're using Cashman, which is not intended to be a football field, right?
It's more of a soccer field.
Yeah, so
some people say baseball, but that actually is the Aviators in another stadium, which they actually tried to get, but those people said no.
Yeah, they got the strong no.
No, people are saying they should have gone to the high school Bishop Gorman, but I'm like,
I mean, I guess, but no other professional league would allow their teams to play on a high school field. Let's just call that what it is.
Yeah, though it's going to be, because we'll see how it is, because also one thing too, did you think the whole ESPN Tower thing, that broadcasting that they have here was weird, or was
I think it added to the weirdness. I don't know, do you remember those, they would do it in the summer times where they would show the Wide World of Sports tournament on ESPN, where it's at the Disney Wide World of Sports, and they have all these different fields, and kids are playing football in one area, softball in another. It seemed like they were kind of going for something like that from a setup standpoint. Only difference was you only had this one field to pay attention to. So it added to the weirdness of the game, or the look of the game, I should say, at least for me personally. But again, it's also their first home game. Maybe by the time that the end of the season comes around, their 5th go round at this, they'll figure some things out to not make it seem as I guess, for lack of a better phrase, lower budget than the rest of the stadiums.
Yeah, just a reminder, the XFL did sign a 2-year lease at Cashman, but it's pretty cheap. So basically $10,000 per game. That's technically $1 per head.
Yeah.
And we'll go with the audience with the numbers here soon with Mike Mitchell and stuff. Though surprisingly, it's interesting to see how that go, because remember, Vegas is the first game here at Week 3 Saturday night.
Yep.
And there's a certain name I'm going to name with that game here and stuff. And it's it's going to be interesting. Now, the next game has a different type of bad to it.
Yeah, it's just a bad team involved.
Yes, that is, of course, the Orlando Guardians versus the San Antonio Brahmas in the debut at Camping World Stadium, which, to be fair, actually wasn't bad. Here's the thing that they need to do. They need to say, okay, this is what's the full capacity of how we rent to the stadium? Because Camping World, because I believe there's Camping World. Is that UCF Stadium, or is that another one?
No, does UCF play at Camping World? Maybe. I always forget what a lot of these colleges, where exactly they play, because not all, obviously, as we've seen on a number of different schools, they don't necessarily play on their campus, so it's kind of hard remembering the names. But I don't believe UCF plays at Camping World, but they have hosted a number of different like bowl games for college football.
Because if UCF plays at Camping World, it's actually bigger than that one.
Yeah.
Because now it actually wasn't bad for our first time. Here's the thing I have to put there: Orlando got burned bad with the AF with the Apollos.
Yeah,
and that's something that I want to is a little bit of a factor here. There's going to be some people. There's even people here that are a little trepidatious because is it only going to be because how COVID shut it down? And there's some people said that we'll wait a year, then we'll do like, even though it's actually doing pretty good here in St. Louis, it actually could have done better. Though I do think some of the marketing, and I'll mention this too, that ever since the pandemic, not just the XFL, but a lot of companies do some weird marketing just to save on the cost. And they still kept doing it because like, well, we're doing well with this, and then we'll just keep doing it because we'll save money on it. Because remember, the Fox for USFL, though, has advertised. They also did the Super Bowl because they hold the Super Bowl. I expect because, remember, of the new deal with the NFL, ABC will be hosting the Super Bowl next year and expect the same damn thing for Season 2 of the XFL.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Though the one thing, and you and I have mentioned this before, NBC paid to have the rights for the USFL as well, but yet you don't see them ever advertise on their national games. You would think with Sunday Night Football they will. And like I said, I talked to a few people that follow the USFL, and honestly, they're as to quote them, they put their hands up when it comes to NBC because it's like you paid for it. Why aren't you advertising at NBC? Because even Fox has to put the NBC symbol and all that stuff on there. Just say, hey, it's going to be on NBC. Yep, for NBC, unless the only thing I ever know is probably have it on their ticker thing on all their sports stuff, whenever that'll be.
Well, that, and they probably do some of those, like, what is it? I think the name is like silent ads where, like, let's say you're watching Law and Order and the thing pops up down at the corner of, like, an XFL, or I'm sorry, USFL thing that pops off real quick. They've done some stuff like that. But even then, that's not great marketing for a football league.
And now going back to the Orlando-San Antonio game, San Antonio looks a heck of a lot better than they did against St. Louis in the first game.
And to be fair for them, they looked a lot better for the complete game this time. Mm-hmm. They looked pretty good against the BattleHawks in Week 1, at least for the first half. Second half, obviously, they blew the lead. So, is what it is on that one.
They didn't do it this time, though.
No, they definitely kept their foot on the gas in this one. Jack Cohn, 3 touchdowns passing. The Guardians, man, like, it didn't matter if it was Paxton Lynch, DeAndre Francois. They just did not look like they could move the ball. And, anytime in any league, you are naturally going to have, just like you have winning teams, you're going to naturally have losing teams. This is the one team in the Guardians that I kind of firmly believe is going to be what we've seen so far. I think they're probably going to be the worst team record-wise in the league. I don't know that they're going to go 0-10, but I do think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for them to get going this season.
Yeah, and we'll see if, unfortunately, something doesn't change. Terrell Buckley might be coming the XFL versions of Kirby Wilson.
Yeah, one and done, right?
Yeah, so, for example, let me put a soundbite on here.
Tonight, is there a positive that you pull from somebody who played well, something you saw that you did like?
No.
And it was a lot more worse during the in-game interviews.
No, he doesn't. Wait, can we run that back?
Okay.
Positive from tonight. Is there a positive that you pull from somebody who played well, something you saw that you did like?
No.
Just no. Nothing. I got nothing for y'all. Leave me alone.
Though I did like he even got mad at and also star in 2020 Eli Rogers on the sidelines. Yeah. It was like, oh dear Lord.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long season for
like
Orlando,
hopefully because Kirby Wilson just kept self-destructing throughout the USFL season, and if you remember the whole deal with the Pittsburgh Maulers, and he resigned for personal reasons.
Yeah.
I don't buy that. I think he was just asked to leave.
Yeah. It's either we can say that you resigned and left for personal reasons, or we can fire you. Yes. Usually how that goes.
Yeah, so the San Antonio Brahmas beat Orlando 30-12, and that was I believe, was that the only game that went over on the point spread, or I know that the next
So I think, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure the BattleHawks also went over, but barely. I think the game was like 37.5, and they got 38. Same thing for Houston and Arlington. They went to 37. I think the over-under was 36.5 on that game.
Yeah. And
then I guess technically the Brahmas and Guardians went over. Just probably didn't feel like that because it was just mostly the Brahmas scoring.
I will say so far that we did see some challenges when it comes to penalties. Some succeeded, some not. And also, just FYI, the NFL is thinking on that, both the 4th and 15 and also having a third quarterback always on the roster, which were both for XFL, and then USFL got something I can't recall what it was.
Well, and I think the NFL, I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't have 3 quarterbacks on your roster before now. But I think the 4th and 15 thing they need to leave to the XFL. Like that's allow the XFL to have their unique rules. And if we're being honest, I don't think too many NFL teams are going to be that great at picking up the 4th and 15 versus the onside kick. Onside kick has been a staple in the NFL. Leave it as it is. Just like the XFL now has a staple with the 4th and 15 that you can substitute for the onside kick.
I do know on the challenge side with Dean Blandino that he did correct there. Like, it's not even a challenge. He went there, so like, nope, go back. Nope.
Yeah.
That's one thing that they need with transparency, but who knows how many Vegas people have on New York there in the NFL officiating room there. Who knows? Especially some thinking the Super Bowl, but that's not me. That's some conspiracy theory territory there. Now for the final game, the first of the Texas showdown between the Houston Roughnecks and the Arlington Renegades. This actually was a pretty good game.
Yeah, pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Kind of curious if Drew Plitt will be the starter next weekend.
Well, that's a big question because he did not have the greatest game at all on Sunday. Houston's defense, man, they lights out in the second half. I mean,
the BattleHawks Roughnecks matchup, I believe it's week 6 or week 7. That's going to be good.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good old defensive standoff right there.
As of right now, with the betting odds, that might be preview of the XFL championship game.
You never know. North and South opponents, so it could very well be a preview. But Houston's defense, man, they stepped up big in the second half with the shutout. Down 14-11 at halftime, you win the game 23-14. Can't say enough about what their defense did. Brandon Silver swinging another 2 touchdowns here in week 2 as well on offense. So Houston showing themselves to be a pretty complete team. Not saying that the Renegades are a bad team or not complete, but that quarterback question is definitely a big question for them because, again, I wasn't impressed with what I saw out of Drew Plitt. Do I want to hold that against him completely? No, because, again, I think the Houston's defense had a lot to do with their struggles as well. But overall, especially getting this early into the season, trying to see what works and what doesn't, I imagine Bob Stoops is going to try to see what he can do at quarterback.
And I'm a big fan of that little white running back that the Houston Roughnecks have.
Borgie?
Yeah.
He didn't get a chance to get going the way that I thought he would, but he had a couple runs there where you could see the flash of like, okay, if he gets maybe one more hole or one more block, man, he gonna take one. So,
and I also forgot to mention the starting running back for the Atlanta Guardians. I actually like, kind of reminds me not as to Steven Jackson's level, but that type.
Yeah, definitely that style of runner. And I mean, we kind of saw it with the Brahmas too. They got some big, like, just massive running backs. Now, granted, from just an overall stats standpoint, they don't look the greatest. I think they average somewhere around like 2.5, 3 yards per carry. So numbers-wise, it wasn't overly impressive. But anytime they got in the short yardage, man, you were guaranteed for the running backs to be able to pick it up. So,
and thank you, David Burnett, for commenting that UCF plays at FBC Mortgage Stadium, formerly known as Spectrum Stadium.
There we go.
And also, he says before the battle, could think about the XFL Champion game. They need to get past the defenders not once but also twice. So,
I mean, yeah, there's that too. And the defenders, obviously, they are 2-0.
Yes, and both of those games, both here and away, both of those are going to get rowdy.
Oh, yeah. I think DC is lucky that they get to host us first.
Now, there were some people that said maybe Coach Hayes shouldn't be calling the plays because, remember, he's a co-offensive coordinator with Chuck Long, and I was tempted to remind people, you do not want Chuck Long to be calling the plays if you remember the 2020 BattleHawks.
Nah, you don't
especially
want that.
later on with those runs. Don't even throw any screens and for some reason, he just wanted to do quick wide receiver screens, short passes. No.
And I don't know. Like, granted, that's the type of stuff that can work in football today, but you have to, like, there's a timing aspect to that where, that can't be your entire offense. It can be a nice wrinkle to it, but only looking at, pass plays within like 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, that's not a real recipe for long-term success.
Yeah, so we'll cut down with the XFL here and talk a little. I just want to mention here in St. Louis that if I remember last week for Thursday night's game, oh, come on here. Technology is so fun, isn't it?
Great.
Get it over here. That all the other 3 pro teams here in St. Louis acknowledge the BattleHawks, wishing them luck, which, of course, is the Blues, the Cardinals, and then, of course, our newest franchise here, and that is St. Louis City SC here. Congratulations on their first victory, first game ever against Austin FC. And as you can see, they did a thing with, after the victory, go with Frame It, and looky what the BattleHawks did there with the SpongeBob meme bowing down, and they're starting a good relationship, though SC's tweet was more of a quote tweet, but there's going to be something there in the future because we already got the Blues and the Cardinals there, and it's interesting that how with St. Louis sports we try to pump each other up and work together.
Well, I love the camaraderie, and I think it's pretty cool that we get to be a four sports city again, man. Like, obviously, I have not gotten the chance to get down to Centene Stadium for the.
Good luck going into the home opener this weekend.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's probably over with at this
both
point.
The home opener for St. Louis City FC and for the BattleHawks are pretty high, especially on the resale market.
Well, and I can imagine now that which we didn't get a chance to announce yet, but we are going to see Fill the Dome, Fill the Top. They did announce this week.
Center Mike Polinsky, remember, was actually a defensive lineman at Michigan State and then turned into offensive line when he was at the Carolina Panthers earlier.
Crazy stuff from him, man. But he obviously is on that graphic there saying Fill the Dome. We did get the announcement this week that the Upper Bowl is going to be available.
Yes. As of right now, they're starting with the 300s, which actually is the club level. And they're doing – here's the thing that they didn't do in 2020. They're actually starting with season tickets first.
Okay.
And my guess is after win or lose against the Defenders, then they're going to do single-game tickets, and that thing's going to go nuts.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah. So, now, one thing – let's go here with NFL rumors here. Where do you want to start?
Well, there's a lot of good places to start. Real quick before we start with the NFL rumors, did not remember that it was the Combine this week. Everybody is in Indianapolis taking part in that. Quick notes for the Combine this year. Bryce Young is not throwing at the Combine, will participate in some of the other like measurements, interviews, that type of thing. Jalen Carter is not working out, but will participate in interviews, that type of thing as well. I think the same thing for Will Anderson from Alabama. He's going to be somewhat limited in some of those combine activities. Where I want to start is the Bears.
Yeah.
Comes out this week that their GM, Ryan Poles, is thinking or leaning towards trading the first overall pick. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know in a draft where folks are trying to trade up for quarterbacks when you already have your quarterback. Let's auction this pick off to the highest bidder and go for it, right? But we also saw some folks make the point of, well, maybe they should trade Justin Fields and take Bryce Young. Sounds great in theory, right? Mm-hmm. What's been the problem with the Bears?
Let's see. Offensive line, receiving.
I mean, two pretty big ingredients in having a successful offense, even outside of your quarterback. If you don't have enough receivers or good offensive line play around Justin Fields, how is drafting Bryce Young helping that?
Not at all.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have enough receivers, and you don't have the offensive line you need in front of 6'4" or 6'3", 6'4" Justin Fields, and then you're going to put 5'10", like 185-pound Bryce Young behind that? Don't sound like a good recipe for success for me.
No, it's
just
something that happened with Joe Burrow here 2 years ago, if people remember his rookie year.
Yeah, his offensive line was terrible, and not that his offensive line has been great since then, but definitely much more competent compared to that rookie year.
The offensive line basically was the Little Giants from the Little Giants movie.
Definitely was the Little Giants, man. So I think they just trade the pick. You know, there's a number of teams that are looking to trade up to try to get a quarterback, whether that's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud or, hell, even Will Levis from Kentucky. Just trade the pick. It gets you some draft capital, move back later into the top 5, even top 10, depending on who moves up. And still take a guy or multiple guys that you feel like can contribute right now across all of the positions that you need versus thinking that replacing Justin Fields with another rookie quarterback is going to do anything for you succeeding right now. Yeah. I don't get the thought process there.
Yeah. So the question is, who's going to be giving him the picks? How far to go? That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing. Like, do you think? Because remember, the Rams were in the situation here in St. Louis when it came to the RG3 trade.
Very true.
We kept Sam Bradford. Let me be clear. He wasn't a talent bust. He was an injury bust.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say the few years where Sam Bradford actually made it through beginning to end healthy, he wasn't a bad quarterback. But, when he was here in St. Louis, he definitely didn't have the weapons around him. And, we've seen him in some of those other stops, especially like Philadelphia. He had some decent weapons. He was okay, but, injury-wise, he could never stay on the field, which is always a problem.
Though, to be fair, in our whole thing trend in movies with multiverses and stuff in entertainment, it's also wondering, because remember, Steve Spagnuolo wanted Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs with Rams draft picks, man. It's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the names like Jason Smith and Greg Robinson. Now,
real quick, we talked about teams that might move up to trade for that number 1 pick. So you have the Texans obviously at 2, which they could kind of call Chicago's bluff, but at the same time there's some other teams that are going to want to move up beyond them. Got the Colts at 4, Raiders at 7, Falcons at 8, Panthers at 9. Those are some of the teams that might potentially consider moving up.
Especially since you told me our Marcus Mariota got released today.
Yeah, so that was going to be the next thing. So you got, obviously, as we see every year around the time that the Combine happens, start of a new league year, which means there are going to be some guys getting cut, trying to save on those salary cap numbers and cap hits. Some of the notable players so far, you had Carson Wentz, quarterback for the Commanders, getting released, which – is his NFL career done?
And then, not to mention, this is going to be an interesting test for their newest offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy is going into this thing, naked right now with no quarterback. So, best of luck to him. You got Leonard Fournette released today by the Buccaneers, which, I mean, you could kind of see the writing on the wall with how much they were using Rachaad White towards the end of the season. So that
I
that was a
believe
little
they were
bit
very
predictable.
high on their cap, and that was one of the reasons.
Well, that was another thing. Yeah, so they definitely needed to.
Weren't they like
lessen that
30
cap
million
hit.
over the cap or something?
I mean, you got to think they're playing a lot of veteran guys right now. Levante David, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the offensive line guys, which they also released Donovan Smith from that offensive line. Brady was a big cap hit. Obviously not anymore since he's retired, but a lot of their money was in like win now, which kind of similar to the Rams a little bit in terms of they just didn't trade away all the picks like the Rams did. But a lot of their salary cap moves or moves against the cap, I should say, were going to be a little bit more painful to swallow here immediately. So Leonard Fournette released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You also got Marcus Mariota released by the Atlanta Falcons. They saved $12 million against the cap.
I will
this
say
year from
David
that move.
Burnett makes a good thought here. The XFL would welcome Mariota in the league, and he would work well here.
I mean, Jordan Teamu is basically a poor man's Marcus Mariota. I feel like Mariota and Wentz. Like, I think how crazy would it be to see Carson Wentz on an XFL roster?
And you know what name we haven't mentioned? Josh Rosen, and who knows what the heck.
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't even know if Josh Rosen plays football anywhere.
That's a good point.
I don't know if he plays football at all.
I mentioned this because there was a release today to probably one of the worst free agent contracts. Not at Albert Hainsworth bad. No.
Nothing.
But definitely, I would say in the top 5. Go ahead and read what.
So the New York Giants. You will read my mind here. He was next up on my list too. New York Giants signed Kenny Golladay to a $72 million contract in 2021, which was crazy even at the time. They will release him on March 15th.
Which is the new year of the NFL.
Yeah. New league year starts on March 15th. They'll have paid him $36 million for just 43 catches and 1 touchdown in the time that he's been on the roster. That is $837,000 per catch.
And also interesting day, too, the season and the final season premiere of Ted Lasso on Apple TV. Now, yeah.
Galladay was, that was a terrible, I won't even say terrible. It was a questionable signing.
He wasn't even injured either. That's the thing.
Well, he was injured a lot of time that he was in New York, and he was also an injury risk when he was in Detroit too. Yeah. But it was a questionable contract when they gave it to him. It looked even worse the minute the season started after 2021. They signed him, and he just was not getting on the field. I don't think he's a guy that's going to have to go the XFL route. He's probably going to get picked up by some other NFL team that's going to be willing to take a chance on him. He's definitely not getting $72 million.
No, after this, he better be lucky he makes league minimum.
He's got to stay healthy. That's been a big thing for Kenny Golladay most of his career. He had some productive seasons in Detroit, but the injury bug has been his Achilles heel pretty much, his entire NFL career so far. So definitely best of luck to him and getting on another roster. But, the results just weren't there in New York, and I definitely understand why they cut him, given some of the contract decisions they're going to have to make here on Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. What do you think about paying Daniel Jones like $45 million? Because I don't feel great about that at all. He had a hell of a season, but $45 million for Daniel Jones?
And not to mention the whole quarterback paying thing, the whole Deshaun Watson, because it messes that up for everyone, so it's hard to figure out.
Yeah, it's all over the place, man. All over the place. And so,
thank you, Browns. Like, I know, Posh, that's your team, and it's just like Haslam family, oh dear Lord.
And speaking of the Haslam family, Jimmy and Dee Haslam have also now become part NBA owners. They bought Mark Lazarus' stake in the Milwaukee Bucks, which is evaluated at $3.5 billion. A lot of damn money to be thrown around.
Aaron Rodgers must not be happy about that.
Yeah, they are now his business partners. So
also a good interesting story. It's technically, we'll say football because football with soccer. Michael B. Jordan actually owns part of a soccer club now in Europe.
Look, he got to spend that Creed money somewhere, man. Creed 3 is out. He probably gonna make about 4 or 5 more of those.
Yeah,
he rolling in the dough. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Though for digital fans, if you want to know, actually the Rocky on all digital is all the Rocky movies with Rocky Balboa are $25 right now, and on iTunes along with the 2 Creed movies for $10. So $35, you have all of them on the digital versions of that.
There you go.
Now, that doesn't include the new director's cut of Rocky IV, which is actually better than the original. For some reason, I'm surprised by
now,
that.
see, I gotta check the director's cut out. I've finally watched all of my Rocky movies, so I'll have to go see that director's cut now. Before we get back to quarterbacks, also of note, Deron Payne, defensive tackle for the Commanders, first player this offseason, received a franchise tag. He'll make a nice $18 million next year playing on the franchise tag as a D lineman.
I'm happy as a person that's played D-line, it's just that it's still weird. Franchise tag, defensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot about your roster otherwise, but happy that he's getting that bag this year. Now, quarterback news, I guess briefly, Derek Carr, of course, is in Indy meeting with a number of different teams.
He's traveling, negotiating right now.
I mean, he's trying to get his next check. I understand it. Talking to the Jets, Saints, and Panthers, of those 3 teams, I guess the Jets.
Well, ask Mike that here in a moment.
I guess, but I also feel like, well,
I would go Derek Carr over Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry.
I think if you are looking for both a win now solution and a potential like quarterback for the next couple years, Derek Carr is probably your man. If you think you can win a Super Bowl this year, though, you probably go get Aaron Rodgers and figure the rest out on the back end. Yeah. Now, granted, I probably wouldn't want to trade what it's going to cost to trade for Aaron Rodgers, so Derek Carr's a little bit more or a little bit less expensive that way in terms of draft capital and having to pay him like $60 million. But I think Derek Carr can definitely help all 3 of those teams. It's just varying degrees with the rosters around him. Now, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, he ended his darkness retreat. So we'll see what that means for him deciding whether or not he's going to retire or keep playing. Let's just go ahead and break the news now. He's going to come back because, again, he's going to make $60 million just by deciding to step back on the field next year. So don't think there's going to be much suspense about this. If he decides to walk away, great for him. But I don't know too many people that's just up and walking away from $60 million. So
Pat Ruffino commented here on our YouTube site on his channel, Analyze and Educate. Of course, we have to remember every time the BattleHawks victory, we get tacos. Tacos.
We like tacos, baby. We like tacos. It's Taco Tuesday.
You have to purchase a drink, though, but still.
Right, yeah, we'll take that drink. We
take
that on the chin.
Depending on, I don't know, for some reason it's weird. Sometimes the sauce in the tacos are actually quite spicy or quite mild.
Just depends. Depends on which day you catch them. But we do get free tacos. So shout out to Pat for reminding us on that.
How many more quarterback news? Because we also need to talk the business side of it.
Oh, yeah. So the other quarterback that we want to mention here is Lamar Jackson, which there's some rumblings coming out of Baltimore that it is more likely for them to explore a trade of Lamar Jackson than give him the money that he is seeking, which all indications are that he's like, hey, Deshaun Watson getting $230 million guaranteed. Lamar Jackson needs $230 million guaranteed, which, to be fair,
like I said,
he's got a point. But
like I said, the Deshaun Watson contract,
yeah,
it destroyed everything.
It's kind of like the Rudy Gobert trade in the NBA this past offseason. Like, now everybody thinks that they should get like 4 or 5 draft picks for trading like mediocre players. It's not how that works. So, Lamar, I'm just going to throw this out here. I've seen, Atlanta as a potential landing spot for him. Would actually kind of like that. They got Drake London at receiver. They got Kyle Pitts at tight end. They'll probably have to trade this pick that they have this year to get Lamar. But you put Lamar in that offense and basically do all the same things you were asking Marcus Mariota to do, but with Lamar Jackson instead, you got yourself a pretty potent offense, not to mention that they are also a team that is supposedly in the mix for Saquon Barkley should he not resign with the New York Giants. So,
Giants fans ain't gonna like that if next year the Jets overtower the Giants.
I mean, yeah, that's another topic there for Mike with his New York Jets ties. But
It's like if the Mets were good and the Yankees just sucked.
Yeah, that would be kind of weird. Like if the Mets were like winning 100 games and the Yankees were losing 100 games. If that actually happened,
I'm like, okay, did I die?
And we haven't had too many of those seasons. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this whole Lamar Jackson thing plays out because, it's easy to say, okay, yeah, we'll just trade him, but then like you've built your entire offense around this one player, and what you gonna do? Turn to Tyler Huntley? I don't know about that. So, but yes, now on to the business side of our NFL discussion.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we go back to the Washington Commanders.
Always goes back to Washington.
Continuing the epic saga of Dan Snyder. Now it looks like that Jeff Bezos is coming back in to join the fold to purchase the Commanders.
Yes, I think that's gonna happen. Just FYI.
But now Snyder does not want Jeff Bezos to buy it because he is salty since he owns the Washington Post and because of the whole thing that honestly it was Snyder's fault anyway. So
yeah.
And now the thing is too, he also says he's not selling to him unless he gets some identification crap and all that stuff. So.
Well, I think for Dan Snyder, he's just trying to do as much kicking and screaming on his way out the door as he can, man.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, you're going to get like $7 to $9 billion here. You're safe for life. Like honestly, if I had $7 to $8 billion somehow, of course this is me. I'm not going to buy. Honestly, I'd be like, is there like some old building I can renovate here?
Right.
Apparently there's a castle structure in Festus, Missouri. I'm still shocked. Yeah, there is.
Okay. Wonder what kind of medieval things.
It looks more like a tower, but it's defined as a castle for some reason.
Hey, weird things happening there.
Yeah.
But.
So now it looks like the owners are saying like, hell no, we're not going to do that. So now it seems like that the owners could be ousting Dan Snyder now. Like some people, like when Irsay is saying we need to get rid of him. Oh boy.
Well, Irsay kind of walks to the beat of his own drum, but I think the big key to all this is going to be, okay, when does Jerry Jones do and or say something? Because whenever the time comes that Jerry Jones either speaks out against Daniel Snyder saying that he needs to sell the team or something along that line, or in one of those meetings is one of the folks leading the charge to Dan to make him sell the team, that's when it's going to happen. Like, that's just usually how this thing works in the NFL. Jerry is one of those owners. Him, Robert Kraft, both of those two kind of at the front of the line in different ways. But I think those two are kind of the guys that kind of spearhead a lot of these conversations. And once one of those two is on the like public side of, okay, yeah, we need this to get done, it'll happen immediately. And I think Jeff Bezos is the guy that makes sense. Again, he owns the Washington Post, which Daniel Snyder can be mad about him owning the Washington Post. The only reason the Washington Post is investigating or reporting on you about these other investigations and things that are happening is because you're committing crimes, probably, allegedly. But, either way, this is not going to end well for Daniel Snyder. Just get out while the getting's good, man. You're going to get $7 to $9 billion just to go home. Now, granted, sitting at home as Daniel Snyder, former Washington Commanders owner, is not the same as being in the stadium current team owner. But, I mean, you lived that life long enough, man. Well,
I will say, if Jeff Bezos does come the new owner of Washington Commanders, good luck getting a new stadium.
I mean, but he, to Jeff Bezos' credit, too, he could always just go the Stan Kroenke route and say, okay, hey, can I get some land? All right, I'll build the stadium myself.
Though with Jeff Bezos, with Amazon, with their technology, the whole thing could be built by drones for all we know.
Yeah, we never know what's going to be coming up Jeff Bezos' sleeve. But I do think him and we've heard the rumors about, other folks that could potentially be part of that ownership group. He very clearly has the money to buy it himself. If he wants to include somebody else in on that ownership group, great. But that ownership change is one that I could see being very important and very key for the league, especially given the market that the Commanders are in.
Yeah. So it's going to be. We're going to be joined by Mike here shortly, so it's going to be interesting. Of course, we'll ask because even though he lives in the New York area, it's interesting to just see how this is going to go. Because remember, this won't be the only team that probably up here for sale here the next few years.
No.
Especially look what's happening with the Spanos family with the Chargers right now.
Yeah, I think you're going to probably see something happen with the Chargers. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some type of, I guess not necessarily ownership, like full-blown sale, but there's probably going to be something that happens a little bit at some point with New Orleans as well. Just a small hunch I got. I don't think anybody's going to try to move the Saints out of New Orleans by any means.
No, that might be more the Pelicans, though.
Yeah, but of course the Benson family owns both the Saints and the Pelicans. I think one of those teams, if not both, might be sold at some point. But
yeah,
a little bit of a
no. The only other NFL team, and this is just rumor, somehow the Seattle Seahawks are rumored to be up for sale in a few years. Don't know why,
I don't know if Paul Allen was the majority owner or not, but of course his ownership stake probably is going to be sold at some point.
Speaking of, it looks like our guest is about to come in here, and for some reason the computer wants to hey, we're going to keep it on this screen right here. There we go, and admit. Hey, Mike, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Hooray! No problems like last time.
We good today, man. We good today. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. I just, full disclosure, I just finished up some heavy-duty shoveling. In my neck of the woods, we finally got hit with our first major storm. Usually in the Northeast, we don't, we have a lot of snow. But this year, there hasn't been that much. But, we're approaching March, and we just got hit now. And then I hear there's another storm coming this Friday, so that's always fun.
That actually is weird for the East Coast.
Definitely weird for the East Coast, man.
Believe it or not, we actually have, for some reason this year in St. Louis, we're getting a lot of windy days here. It's like...
Feels like Chicago, right?
Chicago, and believe it or not, tomorrow's going to be 70 degrees, then Thursday, Friday's going to rain and be in the 40s. So...
you get all your seasons in 1 week here in St. Louis, man.
So...
It's pretty wild.
So... Mike, week 2 has been done in here in the XFL. There were, as we covered a little bit with our run through a little bit, there were some highs, some lows, but then there was also some positives as well. So, what did you think throughout the whole week 2 with the XFL this last weekend?
I still feel like the XFL, the 2023 version, is in its infant stages. We're still trying to figure it all out. These teams are all new, so they're still kind of learning each other. Some teams are ahead of others. We see how great, it seems like a totally different league. You watch the BattleHawks games, and it's wow, this is such an awesome league. Already within 2 weeks, these are exciting, fun games. All the XFL rules, all the innovations are coming into play, and you're seeing all the dramatic finishes. And then you see a few other games where it's a little bit sloppy. Anything involving the Guardians is right now. And then the unfortunate deal in Vegas where, those teams play hard. It's not on the players. You can't do anything about the weather. And, even the venue, I suppose, is doable. But, the field was an issue there. So it's if you're an outsider and you're watching this league, if you watch the BattleHawks game with the Dragons on Thursday night, you go, you know what? This league's pretty lit. Look how cool this is. And then if you're watching the Vegas game, you think, whoa, this is like a Bush League outfit. What kind of a league is this? So it's kind of strange. You got a lot of Jekyll and Hyde, but I would say after 2 weeks, it's been fun. And as it grows and improves the play, I think each week takes on more importance, and the games become even more fun. And, lo and behold, here we are. We're approaching week 3 now.
Yeah, and then, of course, we had, with our BattleHawks here at St. Louis, the first Thursday night game. But I'm actually, because we all agree that FX is more of an experiment with the XFL by Disney, correct?
Well, honestly, what people didn't realize is like when that Disney deal was announced, and now it's been reported, it's a 5-year deal worth up to 150 million, which is not bad. I would say that's better than nothing, which was the last iteration.
Yep.
But there was a no paid distribution deal, so that's a pretty good deal. But what people didn't realize when the Disney deal was announced, everybody focuses in on ABC and ESPN, and rightfully so, right? But the FX deal was a key part of this. So was ESPN Plus. Like networks like FX are looking to get live viewership. They're looking because a lot of these cable stations, these niche stations and channels, they get a lot of DVR programming. People catch their shows whenever they can. They got it on demand, and so there's not a lot of like live content out there. So a big reason why Disney was keen on this deal was building up FX and ESPN Plus and having those be, having those two particular networks, one a streamer, one a traditional, have those places be live content sources. So because that's the thing with today's day and age, nothing's bulletproof, but sports is pretty close to it because there's very few programs out there where you'll actually sit for 2 to 3 hours and watch them live. And so that's the thing with sports. So sponsors love live sports because maybe, just maybe, someone will catch one of their commercials, So it's like, it's not a fast forward kind of deal. Or if you're watching a streaming show, you don't have to worry about commercials. Most streaming networks, a lot of streaming networks now are trying to incorporate commercials as much as they can.
Good luck, Netflix, on that.
Exactly. So I think like people poo-poo it or look down on it or kind of ignored the whole FX aspect, but I think that was kind of important to ESPN. We're looking at even from 3 years ago, we're looking at a totally different viewership model than it was. The streamers really took off during COVID, and now a lot of the critically acclaimed shows are all over the map. Whatever it may be, whether it be Hulu or Peacock or Disney or Disney Plus or what have you. There's so many. The Ted Lasso show, all these shows that are on these streamers are popular and they're hits. Mandalorian, one of my favorites.
So it's tomorrow.
This is the way. This is the way now for all these streamers and for all these stations and everything. Live sports is king right now. So the numbers on FX have been pretty decent, all things considered, considering what they normally pull. And then anything on FX that's in the top 10 in cable, especially in the 18 to 49 demo, they'll take that six ways from Sunday because a lot of their programs do not produce that. And then so it's interesting, even though we prefer like the BattleHawks, for instance, in week 4, I believe their home openers on ESPN2, if I'm not mistaken. In a perfect world, considering how awesome that's going to be, that crowd, how energetic it's going to be, and how big it's going to be, you'd want to flex that on ABC or ESPN. Nothing against ESPN2. So, there's some other BattleHawks games this season that are going to be on FX. We're just going to have to get used to that dynamic. I've been watching all the games on ESPN Plus. So I know I'm not alone on that. And that's not factored into the overall viewership of the league. And it's just so convenient, right? So it's such a nice and easy setup, the on-demand stuff. I watch Player 54 on there. I watch even the ESPN show, which is like a pretty cool preview show that they do for the league. That's available on demand there too. So if you don't have that Disney bundle, it's a pretty good deal, actually. If you're a Marvel guy or what have you. I don't work for them, so I'm not trying to get some side. This isn't side hustle for me. But if you're into like Marvel and if you're into like me, like the CFL, the XFL, all these other sports programs, it's not a bad deal getting that bundle there, $10 or whatever. If you're one of those people who cut the cord, I know a lot of people don't even have FX. I know some people don't even have ESPN anymore. So that's kind of the story there. But it's interesting to the new dynamic of the XFL in 2023.
Yeah. Of course, the one thing with the streaming, because I talked to Josh about this too, it's not just ESPN Plus, because the streaming also includes Hulu Live TV, YouTube TV, and I know heavily on Facebook, Fubo has been heavily advertised for the XFL.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Then there's also Sling TV, though I heard that's going down. Plus, when it comes to numbers, that's just DirecTV satellite, not DirecTV streaming service, correct?
Right, that is correct. And then we got ESPN Deportes, which is in the mix here too. Like it's like the FX number that was on Saturday night. The combination of FX and ESPN Deportes for that crazy Vegas game was 605,000 viewers, and that's even coming into play now. And I think maybe the XFL needs to even hype that aspect up. Maybe one day they'll be in Mexico. Who knows?
I know that's their plan.
Yeah,
That's their plan.
I'm from New York, so with I grew up in neighborhoods where it's like multicultural and bilingual, and even a gringo like me knows some bad Spanish, speaks some bad Spanish. So mucho trabajo, poco dinero, so that kind of thing. So it's like, I would love to see the XFL lean on that a little bit, even show some highlights from ESPN Deportes is some of the XFL stuff. It's cool to see that they kind of factored into that rating, and there's even people checking out that. So that's really awesome. There's so many different ways now. You mentioned all the different options. There's so many different ways to watch these games now.
Now, the thing is, too, people forget, unlike 2020, there actually is an audio version this time around.
That's true too. That's another avenue for people. That's something they should have had back then that they do have now. That's awesome.
Yeah, that people don't know that's the serious. Do we still call it satellite radio, or is it? I'm confused with that now.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So there's an audio version on hearing on Sirius out radio. That course is helpful for those with the visually impaired. Yeah. Now, the one thing too is speaking of the Vegas DC game, of course. With the whole field thing, and also, what did you think of the tower structure they had for the broadcast? It's not bad, it just looked weird.
Yeah, it's like that facility. What a lot of people don't realize is that facility was option D, maybe option C for the XFL. So they even looked at Bishop Gorman, which is a very nice, high school field and all that, but facilities and trying to hook it up for broadcast. It's just funny to see the worldwide leader in sports, ESPN, on this dangerous tower where a very good wind gust could have put an end to everybody.
And it did get windy. That's the
yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, we're watching. I remember, I'm a old enough football fan where I used to, it was in the pre-HD era where I watched games, and I remember foggy and blurry cameras and all that. So seeing that on Saturday night from ESPN of all production teams was kind of fascinating, just seeing those blurry cameras. And I know people were saying this game is drunk, literally, So I mean, it was funny, but I mean, it was very strange to see that. Yeah, that setup, work in progress, they wanted to be at Allegiant, didn't work out, some hurdles there. They looked at Las Vegas Ballpark, didn't work out there. And then here we are, they looked at Bishop Gorman, and they're at Cashman. And, it's really a lot of people criticize the move to Vegas to begin with. I can understand it from a business standpoint, but, that wasn't a great look for the league on Saturday. It has its kind of charm and appeal in a crazy way, but we'll see how it progresses from here. But they just have to do a better job on the field, because you can't have a league, where you profess that you're about player safety and then have players. Now, thankfully, there weren't a lot of serious injuries, although the defenders lost another center.
No, you got a returning coming back right now. So
you got Bruno Reagan, who's coming into the fold. That's what happens in these leagues. You get enough injuries in one position that don't make sure your phone's at hand, because you could get the call. And I'm glad for Bruno; he's a good guy, so it's cool to see him back in the league reuniting with.
I'm still surprised Memphis released him, though. USFL got some curious. Some people were even shocked that Breakers starting running back got released. So it's
a lot of curious decisions. You got 4 different new coaching staffs in the USFL, 4 new head coaches, because head coaches bailed, left for wink, wink personal reasons or what have you.
We made that joke earlier, especially when it came to Kirby Wilson.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So then you see these guys, they inherit players from the previous regime, and they're like, you don't mean anything to me, and they just release you. So I see Ty Rouse is out there, the kicker. He's been working with Nick Novak, so that could be a way for him to get. He could be somebody like Bruno Reagan, who gets back into the league, especially if it wasn't all Bailey Giffen's fault, slipping and falling on that that dreaded field goal attempt in Vegas, but you never know. A couple more misses like that, and Ty Rouser could be back in the XFL after he was with the Defenders in 2020. But yeah, there's just so many like interesting and moving parts right now with the league. It's got, we think of it as, picking up where it left off, but it's not. In some respects it is, but it's not really. In a lot of ways, XFL 2023 is a first-year league.
Yeah, the one thing I'm kind of interested, because like I said, the Vega, or I'll just call it now, this is the type of there must be a winner type game here for the first game on Saturday night. So I'm hoping that, I don't know, like I did see some pics because it's weird because you have to remember desert, and some of the grass was still dormant, and we did see some pics of grass being painted, if you will. So it's like, do you think probably this time, like I know I saw Doug Whaley on the sidelines, probably try to see if they could get some better grass care, especially for this week, because it could happen, because the weather in Vegas is a lot better. Though the weird thing is, I saw people that were actually at the game said they actually enjoyed the experience at Cashman Stadium, which is actually quite weird.
Yeah, I got Brandon Anderson, who hosts the comeback period on YouTube. He was also at the game, and he was there with his wife, and he said he had a great time. It was fun. The atmosphere was fun. So I don't know, so I saw some people complaining too, that was a perfect storm of like craziness. I mean, you had the bad weather, and then they had communications issues. They had to shut off the headsets for both teams. There was just a lot. There was a lot of like everything kind of what could go wrong did go wrong. I suppose it could have been worse. But it is what it is. But they really, the league, whether it's the league, the city, the facility, they need to come together and do a better job with the field. You can live with it being a small venue, even if they had sold out the entire place, it's only 10,000 to begin with. So whatever it was, the reported amount 6,000. It is what it is, the number there. But you got to get that field right, and so.
What the heck? Was that tracks or something in the middle? I still don't know what that was.
Yeah, they had tracks all over the field. And, I was like, when I saw that, I was thinking, oh, boy, there's going to be like 5 to 6 torn ACLs in this game. It's like, now, fortunately, that's not what happened. But, there were guys who got hurt, but I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a disaster. So I don't know how it was haphazard, the whole thing, just the way it was all put together. They tried to dress it up. They tried to, make it look good, but it's a tough one. They did it so late too. Like if this is something that was announced in 2020 or 2021, then maybe they had 2 years of runway to work on the thing and set everything up broadcast facility wise, expand seating, this, that, and the other. But, they kind of made this deal late to go to Cashman. And so you kind of saw the results on Saturday of what happens when you're late to the party.
I will say it is surprising how late they were, and not mention I'll mention this in a little bit, the marketing for the Vegas State. They got 6,000. I was actually surprised by that, believe it or not.
I was too. I thought for sure this would be, especially because of the weather. I thought because of the weather, you'd have a very good chance, even though at the beginning of the game, but there wasn't a lot of rain, but then obviously it picked up. I thought for sure you because it eliminates walk-up crowds, because people don't want to go through all that. Yeah. He wants to be out there for 3 hours. So I was surprised they even got to 6,000. I know a lot of people were skeptical about that actual number. I'm just a messenger. That's what I got. That's what I got from Cashman Field and from the league. And then I think even in my tweet I put per the league. So, it's like, it's not me, man, so it's like, this is what they're telling me.
Yeah, it's a weird setup, and let's see if there's improvement and stuff. Like, I know some people said, like, moving to San Diego, move to Oakland. I'm like, for the people, just want to say, watching right now, Oakland, you want them to go to the Coliseum where they literally have number 2 coming out of under the ground to play at the Coliseum.
Yeah, I know that it's I'm a little bit partial to San Diego. I think there's a lot of 2020 fans that are like pissed off because when you see like the Vipers situation, you see the Guardians, they drew a decent crowd, but there's a lot of like New York Guardians fans that felt like, why'd you take our team? So it's like, they don't even like, so there's a lot of people that were like, there's a lot of 2020 fans that are not happy about some of these choices of the new markets in the league, Vegas, Orlando. So San Antonio, nobody can knock. That was the right decision. That's a smart move. That's a great market, beautiful city. They're going to be playing the championship game there. So good choice. So we'll see if the BattleHawks fans travel to San Antonio if they get to the championship game. That'd be cool. They can really fill that sucker up. So we'll see how that all goes. But a lot of first-year leagues have first-year problems. It's just that this kind of league is carrying the banner of the 2021.
Yeah, that's the bad part.
If this was just a new league that Danny and Dwayne had started or Redbird had started, you'd be a little more accepting or give them a little bit of a pass. Hey, it's a new league, but a lot of people expect the same quality that they saw 3 years ago.
Yeah. Now, one thing I kind of mentioned to Josh here, like I'll say the marking's a bit different with the 2023 version, though. To be clear, all marketing for sports changed because of COVID.
Yeah.
And it's like, I kind of expect it for you two that we'll see more of a grassroots movement because now they got all the offices there and stuff. We'll still see if they still do the Arlington hub, but we'll see. It's just that I think, like, just to save money, it's the year 2 where they do the grassroots and stuff because I do see Orlando doing better. Just that, I don't know, Danny was late on that press conference a few weeks beforehand, in my opinion. So I don't know.
It's kind of strange because, when you compare this to the 2020 outfit, right? You mentioned the COVID deal, the more of a grassroots. Say what you will about Vince McMahon, but no one can ever deny his success in building up an entity and in brand building and hype itself. Look at what he built, the empire he built with the WWE. And then back at XFL 2020, not only did they have the grassroots movement in each market months before the season started, but they also had 3 major networks promoting the league in Fox, ESPN, and ABC with commercials throughout. And then there was a lot more people that were hired in positions like Kurt Hunziker and all these people that were in these markets and getting everybody into these leagues. Even Jim Zorn in Seattle helped sell tickets with the Dragons. I know people didn't like him as a coach, but he's such a popular figure there that, that's one of the reasons why they were able to draw in more fans in Seattle in 2020. So it's definitely some of it is on purpose. They're saving money on travel. They're saving money on the Arlington hub. They got teams traveling together. They got 3 teams in Texas. So they are looking at this with more of a long view approach, and they did spend less. They spent more of their effort. They spent less of their efforts on social media, on the local markets, on the grassroots stuff. And they didn't spend as much money as marketing and promoting. And so you can kind of see a little bit of the results there in terms a lot of what they got is by default. The numbers that they've gotten attendance wise and everything else, it's been by default. They didn't go Vince McMahon all out. I'm going to spend as much money as I can because I want to make a strong impression immediately kind of deal. They're taking more of a long view approach. We'll see if it pays off. The league has to continue to produce a quality product, and you got to hope as the season goes along and they get towards the later portion of the year that through word of mouth, the league continues to build interest and show its viability.
So, yeah, we'll see how they go. Like, do you expect year 2 they actually try maybe have the teams practice or do some more activities in the communities or something like that? Or I don't know. I'm not asking for a special plan. Like, that's just a possibility, I'm thinking.
I'm thinking it is a possibility. Now, they do have a deal with Arlington, so I think they might be doing, like XFL in 2020 did do a centralized training camp. They did that in Houston, if I'm not mistaken. So they were all together. They actually had preseason games and all that. So, but maybe these teams could branch out more into their own individual markets. Like St. Louis is amazing. So they're coming back strong and the team looks really good. And so that's great. San Antonio, they got that number by default because San Antonio is such a wonderful market. I bet you if they'd put more money and promotion into that, they would have had even more fans at the games. Yeah. And so that's kind of the story there. But I do think that, you got to baby steps. You got to get to year 2 first. You got to get to the next off season. But I do think that we're going to see them step it up a little bit in terms of doing more of a grassroots campaign. And it takes time to build up some of these teams in new markets. Not everybody's going to embrace them the way St. Louis has.
Yeah, though I will say there is still a few in St. Louis that are waiting until after the first season to commit, though strangely we are still doing pretty well. Of course, I don't know, I'm thinking out of all the markets, because like I asked Josh here, I'm not too sure if the Spurs acknowledge the Brahmas quite yet. It's not like you saw for Thursday, the Blues, the Cardinals, and then finally newly and won their first game, St. Louis City SC soccer team, and the BattleHawks acknowledged them with their victory with a SpongeBob meme on their social media with that photo. So, of course, that's more St. Louis with our community. All our sports teams work together. So, hopefully that happens soon. I don't know, Orlando, would that be more the Magic, or would UCF do that too?
I mean, you're probably looking at more like Orlando Magic, maybe UCF. I think, and Mike, you can kind of give your opinion on this too. I think the Guardians, the biggest thing, they just got to put out a better product on the field before they can kind of worry about on the publicity they get off the field, right?
That's a tough one because that's shaping up like the Guardians are the XFL's version of the Maulers last year in the USFL. Mm-hmm. It's looking like, they could be a candidate for like, 1-9, 0-10 type campaign. It's not that they don't have some good players. They do. They actually have a lot of good skill players that I like on offense. And Tony Carter's done a decent job with their defense. They have some nice players there. But the offensive line, the coaching, some of the indecision and decision-making of their offensive coordinator, Robert Ford and Terrell Buckley, that was a pretty tough moment for him in week 1 where Wade Phillips that's the great thing about the XFL with this all access stuff. Wade Phillips was caught on camera saying he's not a real coach. So, I mean, that's pretty rough. I feel bad for Buckley, but I wasn't really impressed with especially their offensive line. Some of the moves, Larry Lee, who's kind of been out of the mix in the pro game as a personnel guy. You see some of these teams around the league, like, you look at their rosters, you look at Houston's roster, you look at DC's roster, and you see like all these St. Louis's roster, you see all these quality players on their teams. And then, you look at Orlando's roster and they got a lot of quality players, but the roster construction is pretty poor and they have a really awful offensive line. I'm sorry, if any of the guys are players for that team listening, but, they could have done better in that area, and you can see how many sacks they've given up. So it's just a mess right now with Orlando. And, the law of averages, there's always going to be a team or two that, for lack of a better term, sucks. Yeah. Not everybody can be 10-0. If somebody's got to lose these games. But Orlando's got to be better than this. They got to be more competitive. They might end up with a 3-7 campaign or worse, probably. But you want to at least put out a better product and play better than they have. I mean, Buckley is funny though. I'll give him that. He's on camera saying, I think I'm going to sub out my whole team.
I don't know. Did you catch the when he was talking to Eli Rogers on the sideline?
Oh, that was crazy. It's like, hey, you're just like telling them that you don't tell anybody when you come out of the game, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I was like, that's what's great about the XFL, this all access stuff. Got DeAndre Francois cursing out his teammates in the huddle. For entertainment purposes, it might get funny. It's a little bit bad that you have one team that's like so outmatched by everybody else. You want them to be more competitive, but boy, if they get to 0-5 and 0-6 and 0-7, I can only imagine what those sidelines are going to be like and how they're going to respond and how they're going to handle things. So maybe from a comedic aspect, entertainment aspect, they could be fun to watch in that refrain. But you kind of, it's because it's a new market. That's a tough one because you might have to start, if they're 0-7 by the end of the season, at Camping World, you might have to start giving away some free tickets, letting kids in for free or half off deals and doing that because the attendance there can be a disaster if they're 0-8, 0-9.
Yeah.
I don't care how nice the weather is in Orlando. that could be a problem there. So hopefully they start putting out a better product and they improve as the season goes along. But right now they're a train wreck, and that would not shock me if in year 2 Buckley and that whole staff's not back.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure who would be a good replacement, but it's too early to figure out on that part because, of course, this time I doubt. Do you think the XFL will do the personal reasons type thing, or just say you're gone?
Yeah, it's great. That's funny. That's a good question. What's great about the XFL, even though they have a football ops team with Doug Whaley and Rush Giglio and Mark Ross and everybody there, is that they let these teams operate and choose the players they want. They're not forcing anybody on these teams. So, but you wonder if they'll step in if these teams are bad enough, like an Orlando situation, where they'll just step in and say, we're going to have, sorry, Buck, we're going to have to let you go. We got to make a change here. That's Danny, that's like Danny Garcia's team, Orlando, in many respects. She wanted, she's from that area. She wanted to own the Guardians back in 2020. And so that's her baby in many respects. And so if they're 0-10 and they're bottom of the barrel, the XFL might step in and make some changes there. I mean, I know I'm putting the cart before the horse. And so, I don't think we'll have an in-season firing. But it depends if they improve or not. If they're getting blown out 30-10 every week and it's kind of a fiasco and a lost cause, you have no choice but to make a change because you could lose that market completely. No one's going to come and watch a really bad football team.
And also, one thing I also mentioned in the show is that both San Antonio and Orlando, they got burned bad by the AAF a few years ago. So I understand there's probably some trepidation by the city populace there, probably.
Absolutely. Like we saw that one idiot, what's his name, Don Harris in San Antonio. Media guy was already, because they're so burned there in San Antonio.
Oh, you're talking about the business guy got let go
so he turned the story. First, a business guy got let go. He got fired, right? And so it happens. But he turned that into the Brahmas team, got rid of their football boss and their GM, which they don't even have a GM. Will Lewis is their director of player personnel. He was in the AAF, ironically enough, with Memphis and all that. He's good friends with Heinz Ward, who was also in the AAF. But the Don Harris turned it into, oh my goodness, expect more layoffs and cuts. It's over. Like he painted that really ugly narrative. And because in that market, they're expecting like doom and gloom. So you hear one employee gets fired. Who knows? Maybe a guy was like stealing, stuff at the job. Who knows what the hell he was doing? Why the guy got fired? One of the business guys, that happens in life. People get fired for doing a bad job. Who knows? Hopefully it wasn't a personal conduct thing behind the sines. Who knows? But the Don Harris guy went out and just turned it into this whole league is folding. Cuts are coming league wide. Everybody's going to lose their job. So it's like, that's like going crazy for nothing, creating hysteria for nothing. I can't tell you how many messages I got from people. Is this true? Is this true? So, and then like within a half hour or an hour, the Don Harris guy had to keep pulling back, he's not for the GM. Oh no, they don't have GMs. Oh no, they have another guy he's still got the job. And oh no, this guy was in business. And oh no, the league cuts are not coming. Oh, my bad. But you know how it is in today's day and age. Like people don't hear the corrections. They hear the first news, and then that becomes accepted truth. Like, oh shit, this league is done. So they're already wrapping it up. So yeah, those markets, sure. To get back to the original point, yeah, there's a lot of trepidation with these leagues in these markets because they're hesitant to invest money and all that, especially if they got burned.
Yeah, and also it's kind of interesting that there were some corporate partnerships that got announced, like locally, like once again, our beer sponsor for the BattleHawks is once again Bud Select or Budweiser. Duh.
That makes too much sense.
Like it might have been, could be more local with Shafley or Four Hands, but yeah, we're gonna do Budweiser. That's kind of obvious. And the other places of doing local beers and stuff. And then, what did you think of the so far first of the Owls? I guess it would be first. Is it a series of 4 or 6 when it comes to the Texas Showdown now here in the XFL?
Yeah, Houston. It's hard not to like them. As a
still
potential.
Haven't lost a game yet.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But they have such a good staff. I really like AJ Smith, who's part of that, 5-0 Houston Roughnecks team back in 2020. He's running the offense there. That guy's got future head coach. I don't know what level, whether it's college or maybe even XFL. Maybe he takes over Orlando. But AJ Smith's got future head coach written all over him. And I think they're just merely scratching the surface with that Roughnecks offense. They'll continue to get better there. They got so many weapons there. Yeah. And then Wade Phillips, Brian Stewart, those two guys have been doing this together on the pro level defensively for a long time. So I'm not shocked that the Roughnecks are good on defense. They can get after the quarterback because look who their head coach and defensive coordinator are. So, you know, it's kind of when you look at the South, it's Houston, of course, and then you know you got to rule out in my opinion, rule out the Guardians, and so it comes down to San Antonio and Arlington battling out for that second playoff spot in the South. Who's gonna challenge Houston for that throne to try to get to? So it's gonna be San Antonio and Arlington. Arlington's got to do a better job with their passing offense. Their defense is really good with Tim Lewis and Jay Hayes. They've done a great job on that side of the ball. They actually hung tough with Houston for a little while there. Had a chance. So I think those two teams, it's hard not to like Hines Ward and root for him. I'm a fan. So, and I like their coordinators, Jamie Alazano, Jim Herman, both coordinators in 2020 in the XFL. So I think the South is interesting, but right now it's hard not to see Houston as the favorite to probably win the whole thing.
And now that you covered the DC Defenders, let's go with probably is obviously the XFL game of the week. The first battle between the Sword and the Shield here in the North Division. DC Defenders at St. Louis. I know that they're trying to get Audi Field filled up. It looks like they're doing pretty good with sales, but they need to get a little bit better. Though it doesn't look like they'll be throwing lemons this time.
No, and I it's so funny because now like some DC fans are like upset that the league put out a tweet, hey, no lemons, because the league's trying to say, hey, your snake's coming back this weekend. But now some of the Defenders fans like, hey, we want some of those lemons too, we want that to be a part of our thing. So who knows if throwing lemons, as long as you're not throwing them at the players, so it's kind of like a fine line there. But yeah, we're talking about a really cool rivalry here. Defenders have a really rowdy crowd, college-like atmosphere at Audi Field. We'll see how many fans they pack in for that game. But, that is an intriguing matchup, for sole possession of the North. It's a huge game. These two teams are going to see each other again in 2 weeks. So I believe they play week 5 at the Battle Dome. So,
and by the way, that second matchup, that's a Saturday night game. And just to let you know, for that specific evening, because downtown's going to be nuts for that game, and then about 2 hours apart, St. Louis City SC has a home game too, that downtown as well. Though for our home opener, right after is going to be a repeat when the Dragons played in 2020, because right after we're done, it's less than a half hour for the Blues game to start. So like last time, there were some people that were walking to the Blues game after that game was done. So yeah.
It's gonna be electric. These games are gonna be fun. Anything to do with the BattleHawks, they are the must-watch team in the XFL. They're the most interesting. Anthony Beck's bunch is so entertaining. AJ McCarron looks like an early league MVP candidate. It's a cool story how he chose to play in the XFL. I know Anthony Beck went after him hard, wanted him to be in the XFL. So that's those battles. The Defenders right now, they're winning ugly. They like to run the ball. They have a very talented group of running backs. We've seen, Jordan Teahamo rush for 65 yards last week, but they've had issues with their passing game. So you got De'Aaron King, who's electrifying, a dynamic playmaker. You got to incorporate him more. So they like to, they have a really good defense with Greg Williams. Mm-hmm. So Defenders try to get you.
That reminds me, that's another thing, because Greg Williams is actually from here.
Oh, look at that. So so what a matchup,
And he was actually the last defensive coordinator for the Rams here too as well. So that's gonna be.
Yeah. There's so much history, right? Yeah, that's a really cool storyline. That's a nice little added layer there. So I think this matchup, Reggie Barlow, Anthony Beck, I think both these teams are well run. I think they've done a good job, both of them, and it's going to be fun to watch it. The Defenders are undefeated, so on their home field. So let's see if they continue to carry that over. I'm really excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be fascinating. The two contrasting styles between both teams, and just to see how things shake out. That whether they have 12,000, 11,000, whatever it is at the Defenders game, that crowd's going to be great. I mean, they were great that Sunday night opening game. That was a fun atmosphere. So they're going to be wild, and there's a lot at stake. And it's definitely going to be the must-watch game of Week 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, for this week, and for everyone knowing, once again, all the games are streamed on ESPN Plus and whatever your streaming provider is for these channels. And this is the first week where 3 of the 4 games are on FX. So that we'll see how this goes here. Because one thing, too, I'll mention, because you reported on for the Thursday game, it was in the top 10 of the cable programming, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It was, I believe, eighth highest rated cable program was last Thursday's St. Louis-Seattle game. And so that was 8th out of 150 cable TV shows in the 18 to 49 demographic. So, so these FX numbers, they got to be ecstatic about it. So we'll see how it goes. I think, when you look at the XFL schedule, it's almost like during March, they purposely counter-programmed against March Madness. Like, they're trying to avoid certain windows, and the network games don't start returning until week 6, the ABC games, which is late March.
And just to say, because people are wondering why are there no more ABC games, here's a reason. NHL. That's why.
And what's fascinating about NHL is that Thursday game that we were just talking about, the St. Louis game with Seattle, it beat the NHL. Well, the NHL that night, I think did 253,000. No, wait. Yeah, I think it was 253,000 viewers that night. Yeah, exactly. And it was on ESPN. So the FX game outrated the ESPN game with the NHL with hockey. So it's so that's kind of interesting. They've got that big contract with the NHL, so they have to roll with it, right? But I'm already seeing XFL outrate college basketball games and NHL games and the Premier League and all that. We saw this 3 years ago, even though the landscape has changed.
Yeah, I'll say it because there was a game that was a Blues game played at the exact same time with a BattleHawks game, and that game was on FS1, or was it on FS2? I can't recall. That drastically overperformed the Blues game, and of course, one quick thing I'll add here, because since we're in that here in St. Louis, I think DC's teams are too, with that whole regional sports network with Bally's and a few other regional sports networks, and they're not doing too well and might go to bankruptcy. In that one NBC one, speaking of, for some reason that bought media rights have yet to promote the USFL. Even Fox had to put the peacock symbol on their thing. I'm still wondering what the hell's going on. And I've talked to some USFL people, and they we'll throw our hands up in that situation because we don't know what the heck's going on there.
That's crazy.
Because they paid for it. I just don't understand. Yeah. And they don't understand either. So it's what's going on there? And then thing with the Super Bowl, because remember, I told Just the Super Bowl's on ABC this next year. So now the XFL for season 2 has that with them in their pocket too, for commercials and all that stuff too.
Right, that's important, yeah, because you weren't going to see any XFL commercials during any of the Fox stuff. So, and it was just funny to me, they had the USFL commercials during the Super Bowl, and during that commercial, they took shots at the XFL, what have you, Hollywood Knockoff League, and blah blah blah, and they had Michael Strahan saying, you recognize the real or whatever. And then I'm watching Michael Strahan. It was like Michael Strahan was taking a shot at the XFL. And then a day after the week 1 of the XFL, I see Michael Strahan on Good Morning America telling Rock and Danny how great their league is. So how great the XFL is, how awesome it is. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, funny how the tables turn, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we're going to do, I guess we're going to go over week 4 here with you just real quick with our picks here. Strangely, I was undefeated. I'm shocked about that for our picks, Josh.
Oh yeah, for last week. So Will went 4-0 with his picks. I went 3-1. Unfortunately, believing in the Vipers, which for the first half looked like it might be okay of a pick, but of course, second half the defenders turned into the real defenders. So I guess starting with the battle of 0-2 teams, Sea Dragons and Vipers this week.
6 o'clock in the evening, and as of right now, according to ESPN, lowest ticket price is $10.
Yeah, I'll in that game I'm gonna take the Dragons. It's the thing about the winner of that game is I don't want to say is in decent shape, but they're guaranteed. They're guaranteed to see DC or St. Louis lose. So if you win that game, you're only a game out.
Yeah.
So so it's important to win that game. The loser's in big trouble.
Yeah.
Falling to 0-3. So on paper, they haven't lived up to it. They're the league's biggest underachiever right now. But on paper, the Seattle Sea Dragons are better than the Vipers. Now, the good thing for Vegas, I also picked Vegas to win last week. That was a mistake. But I really should have factored in the weather more than I did, because that weather last week really favored DC's style of play, with their running backs and their running quarterbacks. And Vegas is more of a passing team. They barely ran the ball in week 1. I think it was like 20 yards rushing. And then they didn't do very much in week 2 either. Vegas's strength is their passing game because, they have good receivers, Jeff Badette, Matthew Sexton, Cinque Sweeting, Geronimo Allison, Martavis Bryant. So, I think Vegas will have a better showing, but I think I have to favor Seattle in that game because Seattle's, snake bit. Basically those first 2 weeks, they could have beaten DC and they could have beaten St. Louis. So they kind of beaten themselves. So they're going to have to start turning it around, and they're going to need to do it against Vegas. I think they will.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the show, too, Dragons, of course, turnovers have been the story of their season so far through 2 games. Because there's, like you said, there's a big argument to make if they could just hold on to the ball that they're probably 2-0 instead of 0-2.
Yes,
so
strangely, with the BattleHawks, with some of the stuff with AJ McCarron, he has yet to turn the ball over. It's surprising.
Yeah, crazy for especially week 1 how under duress he was
Right.
the early portion of that game to be able to keep from turning the ball over was pretty crazy.
We'll save the St. Louis DC for last. Then we got Orlando at Arlington, 3 o'clock on Sunday at Choctaw Stadium, and lowest ticket price there is $33. So the question is, will Arlington make a comeback after the Houston loss and the big question is, will Drew Plitt be the star? Because some people are wondering why Kyle Sloter isn't starting quite yet.
Yeah, I'm in that camp too. As far as that goes, Orlando is the XFL's get right team. So, until proven otherwise, you'd figure Arlington will get an easy victory and they'll be able to do some stat padding and look pretty good. This weekend they'll get to 2-1. That's what it looks like to me. It's taken Vegas a while to come along with this, because I was surprised San Antonio was only favored by 3 last week against Orlando, and they obviously blew them out. So I think Arlington might not even need that very much of a passing game to beat Orlando. Maybe even Drew Plitt will make some plays this week and probably keep his job, which will frustrate a lot of people who are Kyle Sloter truthers. But I just can't see. I think the Renegades are 9.5 point favorites. Last I checked, and that might go up. Their defense alone might score 15 points. They might score 2 touchdowns, or So special teams maybe 2. So
Jordan Powell and all those guys are doing Will Hill and
this feels like this feels like a get right game for Arlington, and they're really dropping down in class. They stood toe to toe with maybe the XFL's best team in Houston on the road, and now they get Orlando the next week, which is the XFL's worst team. So stranger things have happened. You never know. But maybe Drew Plitt turns the ball over 3 or 4 times and officially ends his era as starter. But I think that I can't see the Renegades lose in this game. The Guardians haven't shown me enough that they're going to be able to even be competitive. So I think Arlington wins easily.
Yeah, I think me and Josh are going to choose Arlington for that game.
Yeah, I'll ride with Arlington.
For some reason, for the first game, I forgot to. I'll just be the guy different. I'm going to go Vegas for that game for some reason. I don't know why. Sometimes for that, just like maybe it'll help just to be different.
Well, Vipers are going to get good weather. It looks like, so maybe that'll help their passing game. I could see them. I think they're going to put up a fight. I think that'll be a close game.
I will say, Cashman Stadium does work for the snake pit that they're calling it, so it's kind of funny that they're calling it that, and it does look like a snake pit. Yeah. So, and now finally for the second matchup of the Texas Showdown here, Houston. It is weird that we have 3 away games for St. Louis, and Houston had 3 straight home games.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
Well, yeah, it is kind of strange, you know. I think eventually Houston's going to lose, right? It would be funny if they went through this entire season and never lost. It would be funny. But eventually they're going to lose. I just don't think it's going to be this week. I was impressed. I'm trying to be careful, you know, trying to build up San Antonio too much because they just played Orlando. But I will say they did lose a soul-crushing game to St. Louis. They had an opportunity to win that game too. So I think they can give Houston a fight. I was impressed. Jack Cohn is a rookie. I was impressed with how well he played against Orlando. He made some big throws in that game. He's got a nice connection there with Mack, his tight end from Notre Dame. So they have big receivers. They have a nice backfield. I think San Antonio can hang with Houston and put up a fight with the Roughnecks, but it's hard to not pick the Roughnecks right now. So I'll say that's a close one, but I'll give Houston the edge.
Yeah, I have to go with Houston too.
Yeah, I think we got a unanimous vote on this one. I think for Houston, and again, mentioned this earlier too, I like the Brahmas. I think the one thing that is probably going to work against them, especially against a defense like Houston, is they're running the ball a lot but not having much success at it. Right. And so you get against a team like Houston that's going to kind of have you playing back against the wall anyway. You know, the thing that you want to do when you're playing up in class a little bit, you want to be able to control the ball, want to be able to take the opportunities away from a team like Houston. I don't know that the Brahmas are going to have a recipe for that. So I'll take Houston going 3-0 into week 4.
Yeah, and now we'll go to what is, like we said again, game of the week, DC versus St. Louis.
It's gonna be it's a tough one.
That is a tough one. You know, one thing I will say is St. Louis has to, like, how long can they play with fire and go down by 12 or 2 scores again? Yeah. They need to not do that against DC.
And I know they're going to put a spy on both Jordan and Eric King. That's the only way this is going to work for this game.
Because I think if you fall down, with all due respect to Seattle and everything, but I think if you fall down 2 scores or more in DC, I think that crowd will just make it impossible for you to get out of that hole. I'm not saying that would be great. It would be funny if the BattleHawks did it again. They seem to play better when the chips are against them. But the problem with the defenders is at some point they have to show some semblance of a passing game. Yeah. They can't just, you know, I mean, it's great that they've been able to win these 2 weeks with throwing for less than 100 yards in each game, but that cannot keep up. And so if DC brings you down to their level. So if they get St. Louis to play an ugly game and they can win it. But I think the BattleHawks have a little bit more firepower than them. And McCarron's going to get better in that offense, in my opinion. I know Greg Williams will test him. They're going to blitz him. Oh, yeah. They're going to try to confuse him. They're going to try to force him into mistakes. But he's getting a comfort level with his receivers, with Prohl, with Butler, with all that. As they go along, you know, St. Louis's offensive line has to hold up. They've had some hiccups here and there during these first 2 games. So you got to watch out with DC's defense because DC's got a good defense. But I just think the BattleHawks have a little bit more firepower than DC. The fact the defenders can win because they're at home, but I just think you have to be able to throw the ball better than they have. And at some point, that's going to catch up to DC. I'm taking the BattleHawks in this one. I think it's going to be close, though.
Yeah. Hard for me, obviously, to not pick the home team here. But for the BattleHawks, I think there's a little bit of we talk about how can they keep going down or can they keep playing with fire. I think there's a little bit of a lesson to be learned in these first couple games in the sense that, play with fire a lot in that San Antonio game, literally where it came down to the absolute wire. It's a little bit closer and not as much of a lead to overcome against Seattle. But now this is week 3 in a row. You're on the road. You kind of feel a little bit more comfortable stepping into that away setting. You almost embrace it a little bit. And I think, again, as you see more comfort from the offensive line, AJ with the receivers, I think that passing offense is going to pick up a little bit. So I say BattleHawks win this one in like a 27-20 type of fashion.
Yeah, and of course the big thing here is the one thing that caused the BattleHawks to not score more is drop passes.
Yeah, gotta catch those. Gotta catch those.
So maybe that gets it's such a coin flip here.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I do think DC's defense is going to pose some problems that the BattleHawks haven't quite seen with Seattle and San Antonio. But again, I do think, to the BattleHawks credit, DC, they saw the Vipers, they saw Orlando in, week 1. So, not necessarily that they've seen the upper echelon of the league's competition so far. So I think, you take both of those factors into consideration. I think the BattleHawks can win it. It's going to be a dogfight, but I think they can win on the road and then, hopefully bring it to week 4 at that home opener undefeated, man. That'd be a nice, cool story to have.
Yeah, it would. And I'm going to have to give my pick a little bit later because I'm still like, that's hard. Now, Mike, before we let you go, there were some announcement here when it comes to your New York Jets, actually. Now,
ooh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are now the part of the Hall of Fame game against the Cleveland Browns. Okay, yeah, that franchise. That franchise. Right. And then, of course, now your Jets have been, now looks like Derek Carr's coming for a visit, and then there's some other quarterback names coming when it comes there. What do you think is going to happen there with your Jets when it comes to the quarterback position?
It's so tough right now. It seems like Derek Carr is a possibility. It seems like they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. You wonder if they're going to strike out on both. As a Jets fan, as somebody who's followed the Jets for a long time, you've seen, you've been teased with, the possibility of certain players joining, and then they end up choosing someone else, and then the Jets are left with, with all due respect, like Ryan Tannehill or somebody like that, which is nothing wrong with Ryan Tannehill. He's okay, he's fine, but it's not quite – it's a little bit of a letdown from what you're expecting there. So I think it's very important. I know Joe Douglas today was, trying to – build up and salvage the possibility that Zach Wilson can still be special, this, that, and the other. But they have to come away from this process with one of those two quarterbacks I mentioned. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo enters the picture. I don't know. But they have to get they have to get a proven veteran starter at the quarterback position. And they have other areas that they need to fill. But without that, they're not going to be up, because right now they've got the longest playoff drought in the league. So for them to have a chance to even make the playoffs and be in that picture, they have to settle their quarterback position before anything else, before they figure anything else out.
Let me just say, boss, we're just joking here. We know that you are the good portion of the Browns fan base here. Don't worry.
We poke some fun at the Browns.
Don't worry. Trust me, it could be worse. You could be a Raiders fan right now. Now.
Very true.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, we were saying, I don't know if you saw what not the Jets, but the other New York team just released probably one of the worst free agent contracts in history now when it came to what was his name again?
Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. So, and it I don't know. It looks like the Giants are going down a bit here because I don't know.
It's kind of interesting. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Daniel Jones. It sounds like he's going to get big money. Saquon Barkley, whether or not they keep him. That's the thing with free agency. Sometimes people overhype free agent signings. I remember when Kenny Galladay was a free agent, there were so many fan bases like the Bears, the Jets, the Giants. All these fan bases were like, oh man, they would love to have Kenny Galladay. And then here we are. He was barely a factor, barely registered. He was barely on the radar with the Giants. He was a huge. Not only did he not live up to his contract, he was barely worth dressing in games. I mean, that's how quickly he fell off after, showing signs of stardom with Matthew Stafford with the Lions. And, a lot of times that happens in these leagues. Like a lot of players, they get their big contract and they don't have the same drive. They don't have the same determination that they did when they were trying to get that contract. So that's what kind of happened with Kenny Golladay there. He just, some players perform better and perform at the same level. Some don't. And so that there's a little bit of fool's gold in free agency because a lot of the players that get to the free agent market, they're the second tier and third tier guys. And some of these teams that are desperate to win, they end up paying that second rate guy first rate money.
Yep.
And so because that's the best of what's out there, because for the most part, there are some great free agents that get to the market, but for the most part, these teams, they do everything within their power to keep their superstar players. So Jamar Chase will never see free agency. It's like you're just gonna, if he doesn't want to sign with you, you're gonna just tag him. So he doesn't go anywhere, and if anybody wants him, they're gonna have to give you 2-3 first round picks or what have you. So I think that the Golladay, you got to be careful. Sometimes these fan bases celebrate signing free agents, and it doesn't always pan out. So the Golladay is like a clear example of that.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, Mike, always a pleasure. Always appreciate the football insight across all levels here. Of course, we'll be having you back a couple more times here throughout the XFL season. Let's hope the BattleHawks and Defenders live up to that Game of the Week title here, and I guess we'll be seeing you in a couple more weeks, man.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I'm looking forward to this weekend.
All right.
Yes, sir. Well, and of course, our time has flown by here, man. We've already reached our 8 o'clock cut time. I mean, always a pleasure having Mike on. Obviously, we went pretty far in depth on the XFL teams and schedules, and players who are performing well, who aren't performing well, all of that. One thing I do want to definitely make a note of course, before we go. Thank you to the folks at Cafe Piazza, not only sponsoring the network, but of course hosting our tailgate and watch party here for the BattleHawks first game in week 1. Of course, it's going to be at Mohawks Landing for the tailgate there on the 12th for the first home game.
And it's right across from the dome too.
Yeah, I think that dome atmosphere, man, here in a couple weeks is going to be pretty nuts. You've already seen how crazy some of our fans traveled, not only to the BattleHawks game so far, but also to the STL City FC game. So, crazy time to be a St. Louis sports fan. Just glad that the teams are winning, man. It's always fun when your teams are up versus down.
And I do think that even if the somehow BattleHawks somehow loses this game, the dome is still going to be rocking and still because.
Well, and to that point too, man, you set the table for the season and you say, okay, well, we got our first 3 games on the road. You come out of that with a winning record, you take that regardless. Whether that's 3-0 or 2-1. Obviously, you don't like moral victories, but at the same time, win or loss this week, I think these first 3 weeks will have been a success,
and
especially going into that home opener in week 4.
And I forgot to mention, because like the Houston and Arlington game, they share the same facilities, and DC and St. Louis does too. So that's good.
Familiarity always makes for a good fight, man.
So,
just saying.
yeah.
Just saying.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here for That's Football. We'll see you here next week, the conclusion of week 3, and we're going to get ready for that home opener.
Gonna get ready for that home opener. Of course, there's going to be a lot more good XFL football for us to take in. Still counting down for the USFL, and of course, we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears open for NFL free agency and draft-related news as well.
All right. See you later.